The age-old battle, PC versus console. Well, today I am going to give my opinion and what I basically think about the battle between next-gen consoles and the PC, and whether I think that they are worth it as a platform. Now, this is kind of a touchy subject just because everybody has their own opinion, and of course many people believe that Xbox One is the best, many believe PS4 is the best, many people believe that the PC is the best, and everybody has their own personal preference. But I'm going to give a bit of context here just to start with so you know where I'm coming from as a player. I used to be a console guy, and there will be an upcoming video on my backstory from where I came from as a gamer in the next few days, so make sure you subscribe for that. But I used to be a pretty heavy console gamer. I started on the Wii, and then I moved on to the PlayStation 3, then I moved on to the Xbox 360, and I now currently reside on the PC. So here I'm speaking from the experience that I've had with consoles and pretty much all of the platforms in the past few years. And I suppose I better bring up the reason for why I am kind of interested in this topic at the moment. The reason I started thinking about this topic a little bit more in depth is because of what Battlefield Hardline has actually been confirmed to run at resolution-wise and graphics-wise on the next-gen platforms. It actually runs at 720p HD on the Xbox One and 900p on the PlayStation 4. And the reason that this got me quite wound up is because we're now actually getting to the resolutions that we had on the last gen platforms, and we're only 2 years into this generation. Now technically this isn't a great direct comparison because we are still getting a 60 frames per second on these platforms, but we shouldn't have to be lowering our resolutions when we're only 2 years into the life cycle of a platform to the point at which we're actually getting the same resolution as what the previous platform was only 2 years ago. Which honestly, in my opinion, if I had bought a PS4 or an Xbox One, I would be pretty pissed. If in the space of a year and a half, 2 years, my brand spanking new PlayStation 4 is now running at the same resolution as what my previous PlayStation 3 was. Now, one argument you could make to this is, do people even care or notice this resolution and graphical difference? Well, if you put them side by side, yeah, you're going to notice a difference, but many people aren't going to be sitting playing an Xbox One, a PlayStation 4 and a PC right next to each other whilst they're playing Hardline, so they're not going to notice it whilst they're playing that. But, this is a big but here. For somebody who has moved to PC and come from a console, going back and playing on console now I find very difficult, not because of the control scheme with the controller, but because I can't get used to the frame rate that the consoles run at. Ever since I moved to PC, I started to notice the little details, the fine graphic details, the anti-aliasing, the screen tearing, and the frame rate. If I can't stand anti-aliasing, screen tearing, and a low frame rate now. I just can't stand it. Whereas if I go back and play on my last gen console, my Xbox 360, I've no idea how I managed to play at that frame rate and stay sane. I find it quite weird to think that that was my standard only 2 years ago. So what I'm trying to say is that when you move to, especially to PC, you start to notice the resolution, the graphical details and the frame rate a lot more than what you would if you had been a console guy your whole life. There are many other benefits to next gen over PC, however. There's the price to performance ratio, which of course many people will know if you want to get a decent PC to run all the brand new games at high frame rates and high graphical quality, you're going to have to spend a lot more than what you would have to on a console. There's also a point that my granddad actually came up, because my granddad likes to talk of these things through with me quite often. He said that quite a lot of people prefer the simplicity over the technicality of what the PC has. The PC is not simple. If a game doesn't work, you're going to have to go through your settings, check your drivers, and all of these fiddly little things that console gamers aren't going to want to have to do. A console is plug and play. You put your disc in, you might have to install it, and then you just play it. It's simple, it works, and you know that the game is definitely going to run on your system. You're not going to have to fiddle around with settings that much. In my opinion, I really think we should stop calling this new platform next gen and start to call it new gen or even current gen, as once again graphics have caught up again, which means that PC is once again the winner of the graphics battle, even if you have to pay a premium price for it. So I'm going to get into conclusion time here, because this video is starting to get a little bit long. If you have the limiting factors of a budget and space, then yes, consoles are worth it. You're part of the specific audience that the consoles are aimed at. But if you don't possess any of these limiting factors, if you don't have a budget, if you have the space for a PC, and you don't mind getting fiddly when games don't work, then the PC platform is where you're going to get the best experience from my point of view. Now, I don't hate consoles. Don't get me wrong, I respect that they have their place in the market, they have their audience, and people enjoy to play on them. But the only criticism I have of consoles is that they hold back games' potential with their hardware, usually being the limiting factor. For example, Battlefield 4 China Rising DLC. Many people complained about that DLC because it didn't have the staple Levolution events that were in the base maps of Battlefield 4. The DICE developers did come out and say that the reason that they didn't implement a Levolution event into these maps is because the last gen hardware was holding it back. The last gen hardware could not handle the Levolution events, whereas the PS4, Xbox One and PC all could. Which is why I'm now quite glad to hear that developers like DICE are now just dropping last gen as a platform. Star Wars Battlefront is not going to be released on the last gen platforms. The main reason for that is because they hold back the game, and I'm so glad for this. I'm really glad that they're now dropping last gen, so it's not going to hold back my experience on the PC. But the question is, how long is it going to be until next gen is going to start doing the same as what last gen is doing now? We're just going to have to wait and see. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed. These are just my opinions, of course, so don't forget to leave yours down in the comments below. It's quite an interesting topic, quite a controversial one, but it's one that I find interesting and quite like to discuss it with my friends and now here on the internet. So if you enjoyed, make sure you leave a like, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.